headlines. The fugitive chauffeur of the sunken ferry Sewol's dead owner turns himself in to the prosecution. Korea's political parties make a final appeal for votes on Tuesday, the eve of parliamentary by-elections. A national security advisor to President Barack Obama says the U.S. will join the European Union this week in slapping new economic sanctions on Russia for its continued support for separatists in Ukraine. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Live from Seoul, I'm Kang Tae-ri. We begin with the latest development and investigations into the April ferry disaster. One of the closest aides to the late owner of the ferry operator has turned himself in to authorities after weeks on the run. Connie Lee starts us off.
After 2 months of being on the run, 55-year-old Yang Hee-jung, described as one of the closest aides to the deceased owner of the sunken Sewol ferry, has turned himself in. Yang appeared at the Incheon District Prosecutor's office this Tuesday morning and now faces charges of helping Yoo Byung-un evade authorities. Yang, who also worked as a driver for Yoo, was last seen at the end of May on the surveillance camera in Suncheon, southern Korea, the same city where Yoo was found dead, and around the same time Yoo is believed to have died. Authorities believe Yang holds answers to what Yoo Byung-un was doing right before he passed away. Yang's surrender comes 1 day after his wife and another close aide to Yoo Byung-un turned themselves in, and a few days after Yoo's eldest son was arrested. Yoo's younger son still remains at large. The hunt for the Yoo family is all in the name of finding the exact cause of the deadly ferry accident that killed more than 300 people. Even President Park Geun-hye has said the Yoo Byung-un family was the root cause of the disaster. However, the real causes of the accident are still unclear. Lawmakers at the National Assembly, because of partisan differences, have not been able to pass a bill aimed at coming up with the real answers of what made the ferry sink on April 16th. Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
The probe into the April ferry disaster is really two-part, one on the ferry operator and its corrupt business practices, and two, the poor emergency response that failed too many lives. And for that, we saw the first arrest of a Coast Guard official today. Park Ji-won has more.
Prosecutors arrested the captain of a Coast Guard patrol boat that was tasked with saving lives from the then-sinking Sewol ferry in mid-April. The Gwangju District Prosecutor's Office, which has been probing the Coast Guard on the Sewol ferry disaster, arrested the 53-year-old official, identified only by his family name Kim, on Tuesday. Kim was the chief of the Mokpo Coast Guard's patrol boat at the time of the disaster and is alleged to have ripped off official work records and fabricated new records that same day. The prosecution suspects he did so to cover up errors committed by the Coast Guard in its initial response to the ferry disaster. If he is found to be responsible for the failed rescue operation, during which only victims who were in the water were saved, prosecutors say they would consider charging Kim with negligent homicide. It's the first time authorities have taken into custody a Coast Guard official who was engaged in rescue operations at the disaster scene and comes amid mounting criticism of the maritime agency. Student survivors of the accident providing testimony in court on Tuesday against the sunken ferry's captain and crew members said there appeared to be more fishermen involved in the rescue operation than Coast Guard officials. They told a panel of judges they want those responsible within the Coast Guard to be punished severely. Sewol Captain Lee Jun-seok and 14 of his crew are currently on trial, accused of charges ranging from negligence to homicide. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
And in other news, the largest by-election in Korea's history is just 1 day away. Our Ji Myung-gil reports on the final stretch of their campaign trails and what the outcome of this election will mean for the parties.
Candidates in Wednesday's by-elections have just one more day to appeal to voters on the campaign trail, and the rival parties are leaving nothing to chance. They'll be out all day shaking hands and rallying up support, particularly in the races in Sewol and Gyeonggi-do province, which are neck and neck.
5 candidates are running for seats in Gyeonggi-do province. We're showing the people that we want all our candidates to be elected.
I've been eating and sleeping here in Seoul's Dongjak district and in the city of Suwon. That is why I wasn't able to attend some party meetings.
The opposition candidate has been boosted in Seoul's Dongjak district and 2 constituencies in Suwon, Gyeonggi-do province, after unifying under one candidate. The Conservative Party has attacked the move as political collusion, but the main opposition party and the minor opposition, Justice Party, claim their alliances were formed by the candidates on their own accord. For both rival parties, the stakes in the by-election are high. A positive outcome for the Saenuri Party would provide a further boost for newly elected chairman Kim Moo-sung, while a win for the main opposition party would do the same for co-chairs Kim Han-gil and An Chol-soo, who have led the party since forming it in March. A loss would have the opposite effect for the duo. They handpicked the candidates in many of the race's more important districts, generating criticism inside and out of the party. A total of 15 parliamentary seats are up for grabs in Wednesday's by-election, with the Saenuri Party already holding 147 spots in the 300-seat parliament. The opposition hopes to minimize ruling party gains. Kim Young-gil, ARIRANG News.
The outcome of Wednesday's by-elections, widely considered a mini parliamentary election, will set the path for not only the ruling and opposition parties, of course, but also for the Park Geun-hye administration. From political alliances to the ferry accident probe, a number of factors have left the outcome in over half of the constituencies in question. Choi Yoo-sun has more.
The ruling and main opposition parties believe they each have the upper hand in securing 3 of the 15 parliamentary seats up for grabs in Wednesday's by-elections. As for the remaining 9 seats, 6 of which are in Seoul and the surrounding area, the election will likely go down to the wire. The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy's united front with the minor Justice Party in the much contested Dongjak district in Seoul, as well as 2 constituencies in Suwon, Gyeonggi-do province, have turned the tables on the ruling Saenuri Party. While it remains unclear how the political alliances will affect voter sentiment, the ruling party spent its final day of campaigning highlighting its push to breathe new life into the local economy.
We ask you to elect candidate number 1 of the ruling party, who will work for the region, work for the nation to revitalize the economy.
The police and prosecution's failure to arrest Yoo Byung-an, the practical owner of the mismanaged ferry that sank in April while he was still alive, and questions that remain surrounding Yoo's death have also become a hot potato in the upcoming elections.
The main opposition party is the force that can hold the Park Geun-hye administration in check. We earnestly ask that you give us the strength to contain the incompetent and irresponsible ruling power.
It's voter turnout, however, that will ultimately decide which party will come out the victor on Wednesday. The scorching heat and voting day falling on peak vacation season will likely affect the turnout. Choi Yoo-sun, ARIRANG News.
For the latest in news that impacts Korea and the world, join Kang Chae-ri for a lively half hour that covers politics, business, international news, and much more. Live at 8 every weeknight on ARIRANG TV.
Human Rights Council headquarters in Geneva on Thursday, finding ways to persuade. The rally on the Kospi continues. The index closed higher today to pass the 2,060-point mark for the first time in 3 years, enjoying improved China data today and, of course, the Korean government's latest stimulus package. Kim Ji-yeon explains.
Korea's benchmark Kospi peaked on Tuesday to end at 2,061, its highest closing mark since August 2011. The rise was mainly due to strong foreign buying. Foreign investors have bought almost $550 million worth of Korean shares over the past week, as their reluctance to buy Korean shares has somewhat waned. Up until now, foreign investors were reluctant to buy Korean shares due to the country's heavy reliance on the Chinese economy and uncertainties over Korea's economic policy direction. China recorded growth of 7.5% in the second quarter of this year, up 0.1 percentage point from the previous quarter, buoyed by stimulus measures from Beijing.
The Chinese economy seems to be starting to recover from its down cycle of less than 8% growth in recent months. But the main trigger has been Korea's new economic team, led by Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan, and the stimulus measures to revitalize the economy.
Despite the record-breaking gains, Korean stocks recorded the lowest price gains compared to 6 other emerging markets in Asia. The Kospi has risen less than 2% this year, a stark contrast to India's 23% and Taiwan's near 10% rise. Kim Jeon, ARIRANG News.
Korea logged a current account surplus for the 28th straight month in June. The Bank of Korea said Tuesday the total came to a slightly over $7.9 billion last month. That pushed the current account balance for the first half of this year to an all-time high of $39.2 billion, a 25% jump on year. The country's current account balance has been in the black since March 2012, the second longest stretch since 38 consecutive months posted in the late 1980s. Exports of display panels and semiconductors both rose more than 10% in June from a year earlier. Korea's business sentiment is forecast to hit a 6-month low in August. The Federation of Korean Industry says Korea's 600 biggest companies by sales are disappointed by the sluggish rate of economic recovery and unstable consumer sentiment. The business survey index rebounded after February but started on a downward trend following the April ferry disaster. The Federation attributes this fall to the frail economic indices, including the second quarter growth rate, which hit a 7-quarter low, and a 15-month low consumer sentiment index in July. North Korea has threatened a nuclear attack on Washington and U.S. military bases if it ever feels threatened. The U.S. government, though, barely gave it any attention, saying it would be better for North Korea to try a more peaceful tact next time around. Yoo tells us more.
When asked about North Korea's recent threat to drop a nuclear bomb on the White House, the U.S. State Department fell short from providing a detailed answer.
I had not actually seen that report with everything going on. I think it's fair to say that that kind of inflammatory rhetoric is not a way to move towards a place in the world.
The White House also declined to comment on Pyongyang's threat made during a large rally on Sunday by North Korea's top military official, who accused Washington of raising tensions on the peninsula.
Our military will launch nuclear-armed rockets towards the White House and U.S. military bases.
The latest threat comes amid criticism within the U.S. of the Obama administration's approach toward Pyongyang. It centers around strategic patience and holding off on direct talks with the North Korean regime until concrete steps to denuclearize are taken. But North Korea appears to be hunkering down.
By mentioning the possibility of nuclear war, North Korea wants to show it will not be dragged around by the U.S. Instead of showing North Korea's nuclear capabilities, this shows it's frustrated that the nuclear issue is not being addressed or resolved.
Former U.S. State Department official Joel Witt also told the Joseonilbo on Monday that leaving North Korea alone over the past 6 years has been a mistake. He said it's time the U.S. open up high-level dialogue channels with Pyongyang. Witt also warned of North Korea's growing military threats, saying it will most likely finish preparations by the end of the year on a rocket more powerful than the Unha-3 rocket that was test-fired 2 years ago. Yoo, ARIRANG News.
When South Korea announced back in March that it had selected Lockheed Martin's F-35 as its next-generation fighter, concerns were raised over the jet's safety as well as its performance. The voices of dissent have only strengthened in the 4 months since. A New York Times editorial published Monday said the F-35 has experienced several technical issues since development began 14 years ago, most recently an engine failure at an Air Force base in Florida last month. The Daily sided with experts who said it would be sensible for the U.S. to either buy fewer F-35s or halt purchases altogether until operational testing is completed in 2019. South Korea announced back in March that it will buy 40 of Lockheed Martin's F-35s in the coming years at an expected cost of nearly $6.8 billion. The United Nations has made another move that's sure to enrage North Korea to a bit. The UN Security Council's Sanctions Committee on late Monday voted to blacklist the operator of a North Korean ship seized last year in the Panama Canal trying to smuggle military hardware out of Cuba. Pyongyang-based Ocean Maritime Management is also subject to an international asset freeze as well as a travel ban. Korea and Japan plan to resume talks early next month on fishing inside their respective exclusive economic zones. A high-level official at Korea's Fisheries Ministry says Seoul has requested Tokyo to ease restrictions on hairtail fishing within the Japanese zone and to increase the amount of allowed hairtail catch from the current 2,100 tons to 8,000 tons. Tokyo, on the other hand, wants a permanent permission for its recently enlarged mackerel fishing boats to operate within Korea's exclusive zone. Negotiations for the 12-month-long fishing season starting this July were halted without an agreement in late June, forcing fishermen from both sides to retreat to their respective waters. We here in Korea are bracing for scorching hot weather as monsoon season is almost over. The heat wave is already hard to take as is, but experts are saying global warming could make our future summers much longer and even more disastrous that way. Kim Min-ji tells us more.
It's very hot and humid compared to before, and there are a lot of tropical nights.
It has gotten much hotter. I visit Busan regularly, and it's the same down there. I can feel the humidity. Levels are high.
In Korea, heat wave warnings are issued when temperatures exceed 33 degrees Celsius for 2 straight days. Usually a heat wave lasts for 10 days on average in Korea, but experts warn that period could get much longer in the coming years. The Natural Disaster Management Institute says heat waves could last for at least 1 month by 2020, which could potentially lead to the death of thousands of people. Here's a possible scenario. During the first week, the heat will cause droughts, and in the second, the first fatalities will be reported. As the week progresses, the number of people succumbing to the heat will rise, and the prices of agricultural and farming products will surge. Into the fourth week, temperatures could rise above 40 degrees Celsius, threatening the lives of some 10,000 people. Transportation could also be disrupted as tires are liable to explode and railway tracks can bend and buckle. In fact, in 1994, when the heat wave lasted for 30 days, over 3,000 more people died than average, and there were blackouts and a shortage of drinking water. Experts warn the damage could be worse now.
We will see problems in the farming sector due to a lack of water. In the manufacturing sector, power shortages will reduce the number of working days, which will hurt the economy overall.
The institute warns heat waves could linger for up to 50 days in 2050, but by then it could be too late to reverse the effects of global warming. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
Israel's military pounded targets in the Gaza Strip on Tuesday after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said his country needed to be prepared for a long conflict, squashing any hope of an immediate end to the fighting there. Kim Hyun-bin is joining us from the news center. Hyun-bin, do tell us more.
Well, Gaza's Interior Ministry says Israeli aircraft fired a missile at the house of Hamas Gaza leader Ismail Haniyeh, resulting in major damage, but no casualties. An Israeli military spokeswoman said 70 targets were hit in Gaza throughout the night. At least 30 people were killed. Foreign pressure has been building on Netanyahu to rein in his forces. Both U.S. President Barack Obama and the UN Security Council called for immediate ceasefire, followed by negotiations to end the hostilities. But Israel wants Gaza's armed groups stripped of weapons, while Hamas and his allies want the Israeli-Egyptian blockade lifted. Israel launched its offensive on July 8th, saying it wanted to halt rocket attacks from Hamas and his allies. Over 1,000 Palestinians have died in the conflict, mostly civilians. On the Israeli side, 53 soldiers and 3 civilians have been killed.
I see now in other stories of the day, we're certainly watching Russia this week very closely because it looks like it will be slapped with more sanctions this week as the U.S. and the European Union are certain that Moscow is providing weapons to separatist rebels that shot down Malaysia Airlines Flight 17.
That's right. Discussions for the revved-up sanctions also come as pro-Russian rebels blocked international experts and police from the crash site for the 3rd day in a row. Leaders are hoping their increased pressure on Russia will lead to results. Song Ji-sun reports.
The leaders of the United States and a handful of European nations have made clear their determination to act against Russia. Following a conference call on Monday, U.S. President Barack Obama, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, French President François Hollande, British Prime Minister David Cameron, and Italian Prime Minister Matteo Renzi agreed to place additional, as yet unspecified, sanctions on the Russian economy this week. Western leaders are increasingly certain that Russian President Vladimir Putin has strong links to downing of Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 due to his support for pro-Russia separatists in eastern Ukraine. The leaders also call for unrestricted access to the MH17 crash site. Washington says its intel shows Moscow is continuing to transfer heavy weaponry and fighters across the border to aid pro-Russia separatists and has stationed Russian troops near the border in possible preparation for a further incursion into Ukraine. European leaders made clear last week that they were willing to target financial, defense, and energy sectors of Russia's economy, but some European countries remain wary of backing new measures that could restrict trade across entire industries and hurt the European economy. Song Ji-sun, ARIRANG News.
A newly developed electric mini car is scheduled to take on Sao Paulo streets, hopefully reducing chronic traffic jams there in the region.
Yes, the car is called Nanico. The current model is gas-powered and capable of running 80 miles per gallon, a fraction of the fuel used for most conventional cars. But its creators are going a step further and changing out Nanico's combustion engine for an electric motor that runs on solar-powered batteries.
We are installing a motor that will have 7 kilowatts of potential, capable of traveling up to 70 kilometers per hour, which is the speed limit here in Greater Sao Paulo. It could be charged within 6 hours using solar batteries.
The Brazilian car maker Sewol and his partner plan to unveil their newest creation in a car show in Sao Paulo next month. They say the tiny invention is environmentally friendly and a possible solution to traffic congestions, which can make a very big impact on the streets of their city.
Well, we can certainly bring them into Korea. It's not exactly easy to park in Seoul either. Now, moving on, McDonald's in China has pulled the Big Mac and chicken nuggets off their menu for the time being, as its meat supplier there is getting major heat for unsanitary practices.
Sure thing. The Illinois-based parent company of Shanghai Hussey Food has recalled all of its products from the market. Recent TV reports showed hard footage of Hussey Food employees mixing expired meat with fresh products and forging production dates, causing major uproar from the fast food chains they service, as well as the public. Parent company OSI Group said the food safety scandal was absolutely inconsistent with the company's standards and promised to review all of its China plants.
All right, Hyunbin, thank you so much for those stories, and we'll see you back here in just about 2 hours.
Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Kim Bo-kyung with your weather update. It was a scorching hot summer day here in the capital, wasn't it? And it looks like we'll be done with monsoon rains for a while after tomorrow. Seoul as well as Gyeonggi-do and Chungcheongbuk-do provinces are forecast to get another 5 to 30 millimeters of precipitation. This may be accompanied by stormy conditions. At the moment, we are seeing partly cloudy skies across the map, and brace yourselves for hot summer conditions as daytime highs in most parts of the country will hit between 30 to 34 degrees. Tropical nights are also in store, and a tip from experts, it's recommended that you take a shower in lukewarm water rather than a cold one to help cool down. On to Wednesday's readings. Sewol jumps to 32, Daegu to 34, and Gwangju to 33. As for other places, Daejeon and Jeju make it to the low 30s, while Dokdo and Kumgang hit 27 and 28. That'll do it for now, but I'll be back with more updates after 10. See you then.
All right, thank you very much, Bo-kyung, for that. And that will do it for this edition of ARIRANG News. Thanks for watching.